Isaac, good morning. Got a new cup to introduce you to today. It's actually about 22 years old, probably. This is the Whitestone Inn, just outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, where Mom and I spent our 20th wedding anniversary. That'll tell you how long ago that was. You guys have an anniversary coming up this weekend, so shout out to you guys. What is this, 12 years?
12 years on Sunday, the 18th. Absolutely. I was gonna say that coffee cup, you said you're introducing it. That's the coffee cup I think of when I think of your coffee cup cabinet. Like that's the one that I think of. So you're introducing it to the people, but I'm very familiar with that one.
I want them to know about it. And it's
tried and true.
All right. Well, today we're going to talk about godly wisdom. Again, that's really what so much of James is about. He wants us to be very practical, living out our faith, but he wants us to use God's wisdom as the underpinning foundation for that, not our own wisdom. And so let me read from James 3, starting with verse 13. Who is wise and understanding among you? That's a great question. By his good conduct, let him show his works in the meekness of wisdom. But if you have bitter jealousy and selfish ambition in your hearts, do not boast and be false with the truth. This is not the wisdom that comes down from above, but is earthly, unspiritual, demonic. For where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. But the wisdom from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy and good fruits, impartial and sincere. And a harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. So that's what he wants us to know right here in the center of this letter. He wants us to know the attributes of godly wisdom, and he certainly makes them sound attractive in comparison to our own wisdom or the world's wisdom, doesn't he?
He does. And, wisdom is tough, and it just reminds me here in James, like that, he spoke to wisdom earlier in chapter 1. It says, and he kind of tongue in cheek, right? If any of you lacks wisdom, and it kind of reminds me of this verse in verse 13. Who is wise and understanding among you? Like it's that same tongue in cheek, right? Like, listen, you're not as wise as you think you are.
Right. Trust me, you need this.
Yeah. But, and back to, chapter 1, it's like, if any of you lacks wisdom,
right,
talking to all of you, ask of God, and God will give you his wisdom. And that's what I think that is what these verses are telling you. There's a difference between God's wisdom and the wisdom of man. The wisdom of man is all about self-exaltation, right? Yep. And God's wisdom is, I love this phrase, the meekness of wisdom. Like, I don't know about you, but when I think of like wisdom, I think of wise people, right?
Right.
When they're godly wisdom, wise people, there's this meekness about them. They're not, you see the wisdom in what they do, but they're not telling you as much like, hey, I got this figured out.
Right. I'm wise. They don't usually say I'm wise,
but they have it figured out. and they communicate that to you in kind of a meek way. But then there's these people that are wise as the world knows it, and those people you think of as like telling you that they're right.
They're blowing their own trumpet.
Yeah.
Look at me. Yeah, and it's very me-centered. And so we've got the contrast here very clearly between godly wisdom, and if it's not godly wisdom, let's just call it ungodly wisdom. Those are the two choices, right? Godly wisdom, ungodly wisdom. So godly wisdom produces humble obedience.
Well, and I'll actually, sorry to interrupt.
No.
I'll actually say not calling it ungodly wisdom. It's just not wisdom. Like, I don't think there is ungodly wisdom. And as I just quickly jump back into these verses, it's not wisdom, it's selfish ambition and jealousy.
There you go. Well said. And we want to call it wisdom. We want to think that we can be wise on our own merit apart from God. That's what those who don't know him spend their time doing, is trying to think of themselves as geniuses, that they've got it figured out, that they're doing the wise thing. But you're right, you can't really call it wisdom. So this ungodly thought process, it's designed to fracture relationships. It's all about jealousy, envy, and selfish ambition. And so jealousy and envy, that's how you think about other people, and wanting what they have, or being sorry that they're excelling and you're not, or maybe you are, but just you don't like the fact that they are. So it's a poisoning of your earthly horizontal relationships with other people. And then it also leads you to selfish ambition, which just creates this inner turmoil that you're never satisfied. You always got to have more. You're always looking at how you can build yourself up and be your own PR department and tell everybody how great you are. And if you have to tell people how great you are, guess what? You're not.
Well, you know, the selfish ambition comes off as you thinking highly of yourself, but it leads to you thinking pretty lowly of yourself, because you're trying to be better and you're trying to accomplish this that's out there, and you've got this ambition to go get, but then you're never satisfied. Yeah. And like,
right, always chasing it.
You can't fully satiate that desire, that ambition inside of you. And so then you're always in a place where you want more, and you're never able to be content with what you have, because you want to be better.
Right. And it's so destructive. And that's the point of, if you're not going to follow God's way and embrace his wisdom, man's wisdom, the world's wisdom, if we can call it that, is bent on destruction. It's earthly, it's sensual or unspiritual, and demonic. It reminds me of what Jesus said in John 10:10. There's a thief who's come to kill, steal, and destroy. He wants to ruin your life. And he'll do that by trying to make you think that you've got it figured out. And if you'll just follow the ways of the world, you'll get ahead. And
well, it promises, it says here in verse 16, for where jealousy and selfish ambition exist, there will be disorder and every vile practice. And it's like, and you see that, like the jealousy, if you're jealous of someone else, that damages that relationship, right?
Absolutely.
Like it sows seeds of discord among people. And so if you're jealous of someone in a relationship, this applies to marriages too, all the time. That, you know, if you're jealous of what the other person is or how they get treated or what they do, that drives a wedge in relationships. And then selfish ambition, if you're just out there to get your own, that leads to vile practices, because there's so many. One, if you're trying to get your own, a lot of what you're trying to get is your own fleshly desires. You want to do what you want to do. And at our core, in our flesh, what we want to do is all pretty vile. Like that's, you know,
it's not good.
Debauchery, and just you go take care of your desires.
If it hurts someone else, who cares?
Who cares? And then, so that's where it's like, if jealousy, you know, wanting what other people have, being concerned about what other people have and comparing yourself to them, and the idea that you want to just go get what you want to get, that's going to lead to disorder. It's going to lead to relationships that are broken, and it's going to lead to pretty nasty stuff that you're actually partaking in.
Well, and I just made a short list, just thinking about the world around us today. It devalues life at both ends of the spectrum, the unborn and the aged. It disrespects authority. It demands its own rights. That's the selfish ambition part. It degrades women and children. And that's just a short list of what is accomplished by earthly wisdom. But the radical difference between that and God's wisdom is pure. So now you're allowing the purity of God's righteousness to come down vertically into your life and your relationship with him. is going to then impact and flow into all your other relationships and be life-giving and building up people instead of tearing them down for your own purposes. And so it starts out pure, and then it immediately becomes other focused. This list that he gives, peaceable, gentle, open to reason, full of mercy, full of good fruit, that's all about how you can impact other people. And it's impartial and genuine. That means it doesn't care who the other person is. It doesn't make distinctions. It's this way towards everyone.
It doesn't care who the other person is in comparison to others, but then it cares who that person is.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
So on the one way, I don't care, but on the other way, I care very much.
It's impartial and sincere. Like, I don't care who you are in comparison to anyone else on the planet, but I do care who you are within your realm of who you are. That's the sincere part.
Yeah. The word sincere, it means no mask. The word hypocrite means that you're wearing a mask, you're playing a role. But to be without hypocrisy means you've taken your mask off and you're just real. This is who I am. I care for you. And I want the best for you. It's not envious. It's not jealous. I want God's best for you. And I'm going to be peaceable. I'm going to be gentle and patient in how I deliver a message or how I care for you. I'm open to reason. That means I'm willing to be persuaded. I'm humble. I recognize I could be wrong. I want to grow from my relationship with you. I want to learn from you. So I'm open to reason. I'm willing to learn. I'm full of mercy. That's compassion that leads to action. And the good fruit is I'm looking to see the difference God's going to make in my relationships with other people. So that sounds pretty wise, doesn't it?
It does. It also sounds rare and hard.
Well, again, every aspect of our life that James is talking about in this letter, he says, flows from God's wisdom. And I like the fact that right here in the center of the letter, he's defining for us exactly what that looks like so we can recognize it and strive for it. And then be reminded, as you said at the very beginning, in the first chapter, he said, if you lack wisdom, ask for it. God is waiting to give it to you liberally. And when he gives it to you, this is how you're going to know that it's his wisdom. It's going to motivate you to be life-giving, not destructive. It's going to motivate you to invest in other people. And it's going to lead you to a ministry of helps and service to other people, not to tear them down and build yourself up.
Yeah, wisdom isn't here to come fight you for being unwise.
No.
Wisdom is here to come have mercy on you, be gentle with you, be sincere with you, but to plant these good fruits and have the effect of wisdom in your life. And so it's like, wisdom wants you to change. Wisdom wants you to change, but they're not coming forcing that on you.
No, it says in Proverbs that wisdom stands up on a hill and invites. It says, come to me, and these are all the things I will give you. But you have to take the initiative to at least turn in my direction.
Right.
Now, folly and foolishness also does the same thing. But again, it's promising you a life of destruction, but it's not going to tell you that out loud. Well, and this all leads to peace. This all has an outcome here. Godly wisdom produces this abundance of righteousness through intentional peacemaking. Again, this person who has God's wisdom is about making peace in the relationships that they have. And they're reaping God's righteousness. They're growing in righteousness. They're becoming more Christ-like, and that leads to a peaceful existence. There's so much turmoil in the world, and there's so many people looking for peace. And it's so fleeting, and it's so hard to hold on to if you try to find it from the world standards, because it's absent from what the world offers. The world wants to keep you in turmoil. Right. And so God is promising I mean, this sounds very enticing here at the end. A harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. And that's life-giving. I want more of that.
Well, and that's that harvest is in you, I think. Like as I read this at first read, and really kind of through our discussion, it's been talking about like how we interact with others, right?
Right.
There's this peace. But as I read through this just now, and it's like, the wisdom from above, and as James talks about in 1, he's talking about giving you wisdom. So there's this like idea of me interacting with God. I go to God and ask for his wisdom. He gives me his wisdom. And then this wisdom from him, these are the effects it has in me. Not only the ways that I interact with others, but then in me, I become gentle, open to reason, full of mercy. Good fruits come from my life.
Right.
But inside of me, then there's a harvest of righteousness that is sown in peace. And so this is not just having, I don't know that this is speaking to having peace with others as much as it is having the peace inside of you, the peace of God that allows you to exist on this planet in peace, that comes from the righteousness inside of you. And so how you treat others affects your inside and how you live this life, and that you can have peace. And you mentioned like so many of us, we're looking for peace. We have turmoil inside, and it's not like we don't have to go outside and interact with other people to find turmoil. We got it inside of ourselves.
Right.
But
Yeah.
he promises peace through his wisdom. And so it's understanding the knowledge of who he is, but then wisdom is that active acting it out in your own life that brings you peace. And so really it goes back to, what Jesus says, if you love me, then you'll obey me. Like it's
right.
This all comes back to the doing of what God promised you to do.
Right. But the motive for that is the love of Christ in your life. Paul said the love of Christ compels me to live this way. And that love motivates your obedience. And it's also, you have the confidence of believing that you have received God's wisdom. And if that's true, you ought to be unstoppable with the confidence of knowing I'm doing this God's way. I'm obeying what he's called me to do, and he's given me the wisdom to know how to do it.
Yep.
So I'm gonna march forward, and I'm gonna see fruit, and I'm gonna be at peace. And it's gonna be really good. So
man, that's a good way to live.
It is. What a contrast between the destructive behavior that ungodly, I can't call it wisdom because it's not, ungodly thinking is, compared to the wisdom of God. And so James puts that out here because he wants us to live that way. So let's go do so.
Let's do it.
All right. God bless you. Good to be with you today. Keep on.
See you next week.
All right. We'll do it.